Welcome to the 2010 Network Intermission podcast, presented to you by the Oregon Ministry Network. Network Intermission took place January 25th through 27th at the Seaside Convention Center. The following podcast from our second general session features Phil and Maria Carney.
This morning, our theme is check engine. Sometimes we have to check the engine. Now, I've been on some trips before in my life where I've not checked the engine, and it hasn't worked out well for me. You know, I was younger and quite a bit dumber. So I'm still pretty dumb, but not as dumb as I was. So, that's better. You're supposed to get a little better as you get older. But you always go and you want to get your oil changed and check under the hood and make sure everything's going right. Well, this morning, we just want to take time to do that. And so we've got such an amazing couple that's here, Phil and Maria Carney from Pendleton, and I've really enjoyed just having an opportunity to talk to them. We're going to have a chance to do that. My lovely wife, Jenny, who's children's pastor at Horizon. For those of you who didn't hear me last night, my name's Jeff Smith. I work at Horizon with Stan Russell, and I'm really blessed to work with a great guy like Stan and the team over there. And Jenny's one of our team members as well as my wonderful wife, and she's over Children's Ministries. And I'm going to ask that those guys join me right now, and we're just going to have a little talk this morning and include you in on some of the testimony of the amazing things that God's done in their life through the years of ministry. And we're going to enjoy this time together. So let's welcome them, if you would. I fall off of this thing. If you laugh, I'm going to be distraught. I am right on the edge. I took the scary seat. It's already scary. I need more legs.
These are for tall people.
About that. Yeah, I know.
I feel like a kid in kids' church. My feet don't
even
touch.
I feel quite comfortable.
Like this.
Is there a button on this?
Yeah, we're all right. Don't break anything. Okay. Well, we need to pray again.
Would you like a helmet, Jeff?
I might. I was looking for the hardest. So, well, hey, Phil and Maria, you guys have really an amazing testimony, and I really appreciate your willingness to share that with us this morning. Jenny, I know that you had a question you wanted to ask right off the bat, so why don't you go ahead?
Well, Maria, if you'd be willing just to share with us a little bit about what childhood was like for you and some of your experiences before you met Jesus.
Boy, I'm blinded here. I grew up in a Mormon home. I was the second youngest of 6 children. When I was about 6 years old, my father left our family, leaving my mother to take care of 6 small children. And during that time, I, as a little child, went through a lot of emotional duress. My mother immediately had to get a job. She was not one to go on welfare, so she left her children, 6 of us, with babysitters. Some of them were not very nice. And I grew up in my early years a very lonely. Emotionally, I felt neglected as I reflect back on my life now. I needed my mom. My dad left, and my mother had to work. And I just struggled for years with that, such a feeling of being inadequate and damaged somehow. I was very shy, introverted, bashful, and I just really struggled with that. That was my early childhood.
And so, also, so here your father leaves. Your mom has 6 children. What was her age span?
Well, my mom,
point?
yeah, I was 6 years old. My mom had 5 of us kids in 4 years. Yeah, and I was that fifth one. So my mom, when I came along, she was pretty overwhelmed with
So was
with
there
kids.
Graham in the area to take care of you
No,
guys? Or?
no, there wasn't anyone really. It was my mom. The Mormon Church did help out a little bit, but mostly it was just my mom.
And so what would happen during the days? Who would come and take care of you guys?
Well, my mom went. There was a Native American is the right word to use, but reservation, and my mother would go down to the reservation and get Native American young girls that would be willing to come and take care of us 6 kids in the desert. I grew up in Las Vegas. We called ourselves little desert rats, pretty poor, and it was hard. One thing that happened to me that was a defining moment that I know was catalyst to the remainder of my life. And I can remember, I'm not sure, maybe 7 years old. I was swinging on our swing set in the backyard alone, as usual. And I can just remember so vividly swinging and having the knowledge at that young age that there was a God and that He knew me.
So, Phil, you have a whole different story of your childhood. Why don't you share just a moment on that? Kind of what was your pre-salvation experience?
Yeah, very different, but equally dysfunctional, I guess. I grew up in a home where, although my mother was a Christian, but it was a home that struggled. My dad was an alcoholic and very disengaged from the family. And so although I had, exposure to the gospel at a young age because my mom took us to church, at the same time, it was a very difficult childhood for lots of reasons and lots of complications growing up. But I had heard the gospel many times. I knew, but I had never made a commitment to the Lord. And then as soon as I graduated from high school, I wanted to, that was in 1969. I wanted to join the Marine Corps, which I did. I joined the Marine Corps, and I wanted to go, fight the Vietnam War, and they made sure I did. And so I did a tour of duty at 18 and 19 years of age in Vietnam, and had some real problems with that experience after the fact. A lot of trauma, and had some real difficulties. So when I came home and was discharged from the service, I just had a lot of stuff on board from my childhood, unresolved issues, as well as my experience in Vietnam. And of course, back then, there was no name for that. Now they call it post-traumatic stress disorder and that sort of thing. But there was no name and no treatment. And I just tried to get on with life, and I had lots of issues and problems. And I grew up in Southern California, and I moved to Las Vegas, I think for some reasons just to kind of isolate myself from family and from memories and that sort of thing.
Just kind of doing a new start.
Yeah, just on the run. And was hired at a hospital in Las Vegas where Maria worked, and that's where we met.
So you grew up in Las Vegas area, and for sure by your adult time, you were young adult, you were there working in the hospital, and so you moved there and connected at the hospital. So how long were you there before you guys got married?
We dated. Well, I thought we were dating full time. For Maria, it was kind of off and on. She had questions, and but we dated.
Had my doubts.
Yeah, rightfully so. But we dated about 2.5 years. Is that about right? And neither of us knew the Lord, obviously. And Maria had her stuff, and she had become a little disillusioned with the Mormon Church by then, and had left. And I certainly was not seeking the Lord, if you will. And so we were we just got married. We loved each other and that sort of thing. We just got married, and there we were.
So then Maria, when you guys first got married, and then you began to have children, you came to a point where you thought, I need to get these kids connected with God, and so you went back and kind of connected with the Mormon Church. And what was that experience, and your brothers, and what was the response?
When I graduated from high school, my mother remarried when I was, I believe, in the 5th grade, and my life really changed. We moved on to the other side of town, had a nicer home, and we really, really connected in the Mormon Church at that time. And the rest of my growing up years, I was very involved in the Mormon Church. When I graduated from high school, I went to Utah and went to college in Ogden. And I can remember as a child growing up, I don't know how many of you are aware of anything about the Mormon Church, but every Sunday they have testimony meeting. And I would be in junior Sunday school, and I would see my friends get up and be able to testify about the truthfulness of the Mormon Church. And I wanted to do that so badly. And I just couldn't. I just could not do that. And then I went away to college, and I can remember praying, kneeling down by my bedside, praying to God. And I don't remember what I prayed, but I prayed fervently. I so remember that. But I could not find a connection. I could not find what I was looking for. And the sad thing was, I just thought that there was something wrong with me. It couldn't possibly be the church. It had to have been a defect in me. And as I got a little bit older, I couldn't deal with that. So I left the church. And that's where Phil and I was at that place kind of doing my own thing and living my life. And that's when Phil and I met.
So through all of that, you walked away from the Mormon Church, Mormon faith, and kind of went your own way, and then decided to reconcile. And what was the response to that you found?
Well, I just thought, okay, I'm a married lady now. We're going to have a family. I better get back in church, do the right thing. And I started back. I mean, just like, okay, this is it. And I can remember one of my brothers telling me, I had one brother, my oldest brother was on a mission for the Mormon Church, and another brother was in the area, and I remember calling him and telling him, I'm going back to the Mormon Church, and I'm, going to do the right things. And I remember my brother telling me that I was going to have to do a lot of works, because I'd done some things while I was out in the world that he knew about, and he told me, you're going to have to do some works to get right with God. And I had my work cut out for me.
So it was very disillusioning.
It was. But yet I still felt, this is right. It's me. If I hang in there, if I keep going, I'm going to find that.
And really, and you knew, and one of the things we spoke about is that you knew that there was a void there, that there was something.
Absolutely.
And you kept trying to search and do the works that it took to make that happen, and it just wasn't happening. So finally, even through that experience, it just kind of wavered and went away. And then you began a quest of faith while you were at the hospital. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, the very short version is, as I said, I always believed in the Lord. I had heard the gospel. I understood what I needed to do. Kind of like Maria, I just never felt worthy to make that kind of commitment, or that I couldn't keep that kind of a commitment. And I just didn't understand God's grace and ability to keep us. But I hit the wall emotionally and spiritually, and I got saved. I gave my heart to the Lord. I was actually by myself in our apartment. And my mother had been praying for me all of those years, which was one of the reasons I wanted to move away, because, man, it's just hard, to be around your mom. She's always praying for you. And So I made that commitment to the Lord, and something genuinely happened. There was no doubt. I had a peace with God. I found that, the search ended. And I called my mother, and she celebrated, and she said, now find the closest Assembly of God church, because she believed that was the only true church. And well, we do believe that. But anyway, so I got the phone book out and found the nearest Assembly of God church, which was a great church in Las Vegas. Mel Stewart was the pastor, became a father figure. And I walked into that church, and it was like heaven opened up. And it was just, like home, like I had always been there kind of experience. And so the Lord began to do a very quick work, and I still don't know why. I just quit asking, but that's just how He worked in our life. But He began to do a very quick work. A few months later, I finally got Maria, because she was still going to the Mormon church.
And we had a battle in our home during that time.
Yeah, we were more compatible when we were in sin.
Well,
once I became a Christian, and now she's doing the Mormon thing, the war was on. And then I found out what Mormons believed, and I was doing all the wrong things.
He was this zealous new Christian,
Yeah.
and there really was a battle going on. And I was fine as long as Phil wasn't anything. But when he chose a Christian church over the Mormon church, because he had come with me a few times, the battle really began. And I can remember this. When he told me that he was going to go to church on Sunday, he told me what had happened to him. Now, I had never been in any other church other than a Catholic church one time growing up, but Trinity Temple was a very large church in Las Vegas. I had driven by it many times and seen the sign, saw the big church. When he told me he was going to go to another church, I said to myself, it better not be that Trinity church. And I know that was the enemy. Oh, he knew what was coming. And the battle really began when
But again, so I finally got Maria to go to church with me, and everybody everybody had been praying for Maria at the men's prayer group and so on. So she went to church with me, and again, that in itself was an incredible story. But again, the short version is that she came, and the very first time that she attended that church with me was the first time she genuinely experienced the presence of God and the love of God and the thing that she was looking for and hungry for. And she gave her heart to the Lord very first service. I couldn't believe it.
I had never in my life experienced, obviously, what I did that morning. And when he tells the story, I'm just standing there in awe. The worship blew me away. In the Mormon church, you sing 3 hymns on an organ. And to see people's joyful faces as they were singing, I was just in awe. I was dumbfounded. But yet knew it was real. And Mel Stewart preached just a very simple gospel message. And I'll tell you, that was it. I found what I had been searching for.
So the search ended that day.
He gave an altar call, and I knocked Phil out of the way, and I ran to the altar, and he's just standing there dumbfounded, cannot believe that.
I thought it'd take a few months,
And you guys really hit the ground running.
We did.
From that point.
We did. It was we were Christians, and peace had come to our life. We had been filled with the Spirit. We received the baptism in the Holy Spirit. Just our life was on course. We were going to, teach, help out in the church and pay our tithes and be good Christians and go on with our careers. And we had it all set, but the search ended. But God had another plan. And again, it was a very quick work. And God began to deal first with me about a life of ministry. And at that time, the church that we're talking about in Las Vegas, our pastor and leadership were planting churches all over southern Nevada in little tiny rural areas where there was no Pentecostal church, maybe mostly Mormon influenced. And the Lord had given a vision, and they couldn't find pastors. that would go to, because there was no churches. It was just people that would go and start churches. And again, the short version, the Lord chose us to be one of those pastors. And so God began to talk to me first about a life of ministry, and it was very different than what we had in mind for ourselves. But it was the Lord, nevertheless. He was calling our name, and we surrendered to the Lord. We were really identifying with Lee McFarland last night as he was sharing about, because our life was on course, we were living right, and we had, we didn't make the sacrifices. I didn't work for Microsoft or anything like that. I did interview one time at a Radio Shack, but I didn't even get that position. Even that technology was over my head. But we had our careers and we were on course, and so we went forward and followed the Lord, and we had peace. We had a peace about it, but we were the most unprepared of people that I can imagine. We still had stuff on board. Although God had given us peace, we still had unresolved issues in our life that were, that the Lord wanted to deal with along the way. And He did. He gave us peace in it. But those issues were there. And over the years, God began to chip away and help us with that. But at the same time, we were doing ministry and marriage, and so it was.
So from the moment you made that response together, and you a few months prior to her, and the start of that church plant, from becoming a Christ follower to being a lead pastor of a Bible study church in your home to grow into a church, how long had you been committed to Christ at that point?
About 2 years.
About 2 years.
Yeah. So. We were doing the Berean thing, and now I don't recommend that. And that's probably not the way we would have. That's just how the Lord worked in our life. But one of the things I think that made that possible is we had incredible people that God had given us around our life, pastors and mentors and men and women that spoke into our lives and encouraged us and validated us and kept us on course. But we were still way in over our heads. I have a theory. I don't know that it's true. I have a theory that there are going to be people that are not genuinely born again, people that are not really saved, that God is going to let into heaven anyway, just because I was their pastor back in those days. They're going to show up, and they really never gave their heart to the Lord, but it's not their fault. It was me. And God's going to go, just let them in. Phil Carney was their pastor. And everybody go, oh, sorry for the confusion. That's just how unprepared we were,
But evidently, that pastor and that pastoral team must have really believed in you guys to know, because they knew you. They watched. Absolutely. They were a part of your conversion and your experience there. But 2 years to go from conversion to the hot seat is quite a jump. Yeah.
But good things happened there. You started to grow, and you had not only the stress of a young family and all the work that it takes to start a new church, but then you went into a building program as well.
Yes, correct. Yeah, our first church was in a little community called Pahrump, Nevada. It's about 60 miles outside of Las Vegas, and there had never been a Pentecostal church there. It was a great experience. We were there 8 years and went from a Bible study to, the whole process of being in a community center, then actually getting property and building a building, going through a couple of building programs, and just the church from the ground up. And again, we had no idea what we were doing, and that was probably a good thing, or we probably wouldn't have done it. But, the Lord gave us peace, and God helped us. And all we knew was God had spoken to us, and God had asked us, and God had called us. And there were people, as Lee was sharing last night, we had people that, scratching their head going, I don't think this is for you. But we also had people that we respected that said, yeah, this is God. Go for it. You can do this. And we did, and I'm glad we did. But we didn't think we were supposed to be doing anything else. No doubt. That God had called us, but we were in over our heads. But God was faithful.
But He sent you good people to help.
He did. He did. Always. Yeah.
So how long were you at that church?
8 years.
So 8 years. You started it, and then after 8 years, some circumstances changed.
Right.
And God led you here to Oregon.
In 1990, we moved to the south coast of Oregon, to Coquille, and we were there almost 13 years. And a very different church, but wonderful experience. And the Lord did a lot of things in our life there.
So in Coquille, you were there for a season, busy, pastoring, working with people with a different DNA than what you were used to, and trying to fuse, your personality and your styles together with them, and God gave you great favor with them. And then you came to a point where the stress just began to compound and compound.
Yeah, as we said, we had things, and along the way, God had helped us with different issues, and but we had these things on board. Maria and I had similar baggage, if you will, self-worth problems, fear of failure. I found out later that what I had experienced in Vietnam, part of that was they gave it a name called survivor's guilt that I struggled with very deep. And that's just when you see and experience many of your friends and people that you're close with in a war context that are killed. And then your first thought is, oh, it wasn't me. And then you spend the rest of your life feeling guilty about having that thought. And so it created in me a pressure to validate even being here. And so it created in both of us these dysfunctions and these unhealthy things that were in us, even though God was still using us. Those God wanted to deal with those and wanted to open those up. And so that takes time, kind of peeling the veneer away. So we both kind of, I think, had this pressure to perform and to project an image of everything's together. We got no problems, and it's great being in the ministry when you got those kind of deals, because you can give your whole life and just consume yourself, taking care of everybody else's problems, fixing everybody else's, and neglecting your own issues. And that was the case. And it had reached a point where God really was going to deal with it in our lives and help us be healthier. But so we had kind of hit the wall at that point, and we're having some real struggles.
And so at that point, you were still, ministering on a weekly basis. You had a staff member on staff and just doing church. Very busy, tied up in people's lives, dealing with crises, funerals and marriages and counseling and helping and giving and giving and giving. And in some ways, you mentioned to me that seemed almost like it was a band-aid for that survivor's guilt, that kind of kept you busy and it kind of was a relief to you that you
Sure.
See, I deserve to be alive kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think we both felt that way, because even Maria had that sense of I've got to prove my worth and so on, just from her background. And so we were struggling with a lot of those issues. It's not healthy, and it's exhausting to live that way, because you have to defend those things. And for me, my defenses just began to wear out, and stuff started leaking out. And God used a very unlikely resource to really begin to bring a new sense of health and recovery in me. And I had just somewhat of a breakdown. And I started crying one day and couldn't stop. And it was just an accumulation of things I hadn't been willing to really look at honestly and really present openly to the Lord. I had protected those and defended those very, very well. And I ended up in a program through the VA hospital, who have really perfected some of these traumatic programs and so on for veterans. And I ended up accepting an invitation to go to be admitted to the VA hospital for 30 days for a program. And by doing that, I really believed that ministry was over. That's the end of it. Now, once I let this out of the bag, kind of, that I've got some of these problems and that we've been struggling with some of these things, that's going to end ministry.
Sure.
Nobody's going to want
Well, and even at the end of your time at the church, right before this, I mean, as this was coming and this crying was just happening, I mean, you would even show up and have to go up to preach.
Yeah, it was funny. I was having this meltdown, and I would walk on the platform on Sunday morning, and I'd just start crying. Well, everybody in the church thought I was, having this experience with God, or the Spirit's moving on the pastor so powerfully. Well, I'm having a meltdown. I'd have to go in the bathroom and get myself together. They had no idea.
Yeah.
They thought it was the Holy Spirit, and it was my dysfunctions. So, but yeah. So I was having problems.
So you went and checked yourself into the VA, and just thought this is it. We're done.
It's over.
Ministry's over. God, I don't even know what's next. Just disillusioned and distraught, and got there and started to go and get in the elevator. Talk about that. What happened there?
Well, first and foremost, I called my board together in the leadership for the purpose of resigning. And when I began to share some of our history, even with the board and so on, the board looked at me along with our associates and said, "We want you to still be our pastor. Go get help. Take some time for yourself, as much time as you need. This could happen to anybody, and we just want you to get healthy. You and Maria get healthy and well, and we want you to be our pastors, and we'll take care of business here at the church. Don't worry about it." And that shocked me, but I still didn't believe them. I thought, well, they just don't know how bad it is. And so I went to the VA, and I remember getting on the elevator with my little chart to be admitted, and the sign said mental health. I saw Nut House, and they're going to lock me up when they find out, how bad they're going to lock me up. And not only is ministry over, Maria probably won't even be there, when I was in a bad place. And I remember getting on the elevator, and I started to cry, and I said, "God, I don't understand how I got this way. I'm born again. I'm filled with the Spirit. I've spoken tongues. I've done all of these things. I've read books. I pray. Why is this happening? And why haven't you helped me with this? And God, you have to show me. You've got to show me today that somehow you're in this with me." And I went up on the elevator, walked to the admitting table, and the nurse looked at my chart and said, Dr. Bogar was the psychologist that was in charge of this program. She said, Dr. Bogar said, before we admit you, he wants us to bring you straight to his office. He wants to see you. And I went, it's worse than I thought. He's read my history. And we walked into his office, this wonderful gentleman, and he got up from behind his desk and he walked around and he shook my hand and he said, "Pastor Carney," he said, "I was reading your chart," and he said, "I knew you were coming in today," and he said, "I knew this was going to be a very difficult day for you." And he said, "Before they admitted you, I just wanted to meet with you and tell you, first of all, I'm a born-again Christian, and I go to the Four Square Church." This was in Roseburg, Oregon. And he said, "I just wanted to say to you and let you know this is going to be a great healing time for you, and I want you to know God is in this with you." And it was an amazing experience, and of the most unlikely place that I can imagine, a VA hospital in Roseburg. And we had such a relationship, and that man really ministered to me along with the staff. And I just learned some things about being open and honest and transparent. You can't do that with everybody, but I learned some steps, and I learned some things, and I continue to, that brought some healing and relief to my life and Maria.
Well, and even just a quick thing is, even in that, it was a miracle that you even saw him right away, because they didn't do that.
No.
You didn't. You told me they waited a couple days before anybody would even see you
Right.
when you first got there.
Yeah.
So she thought, the lady thought he knew you.
Yeah, he thought, because it was so unusual. Yeah, she goes, "He never does this." She thought I knew him or something. So I didn't know what was going on. But so we began a more transparent, open approach to life and ministry, during those times, and learned some steps and some tools that just help us to quit projecting the fake image.
And so, Maria, you were home with the kids and holding up the fort and hoping and praying, that he would just get healthy and better, that it would be a good process. Or can you tell us a little bit about that time for you?
Well, I knew that Phil needed to do this, and I knew too that God had made it possible for him to go get the help that he needed. So I was at peace with that, and the kids were fine, and we stayed home, and it was fine. The Lord was with us, and
so what are some of the things that you learned through this process that you can share with us? Because all of us have stories, all of us have some things under our hood that we need to check.
Well, I think that there's lots of things, and again, this isn't like we were always like had peace in ministry and that sort of thing, and we enjoyed and loved ministry. It was just there were some things in us that weren't healthy and were becoming more and more unhealthy because they were unattended to. But there were things along the way that really helped us. Again, seeking out mentors and what we call now coaches, but taking advantage of those kinds of people. And God always gave us those people. And I think along the way we learned too that as pastors sometimes we don't understand that even sometimes, not always, but even sometimes the church you're pastoring is there for you too. God will use that church to minister to you sometimes, which was the case for us. And learning to have the importance of having healthy relationships with your church and your board and that sort of thing, because God always had people in the church that encouraged us and ministered to us.
They were very loving and accepting. And for me, I had to seek counseling a couple of times, going through very difficult times in my life. And as pastors' wives, we can't share those deep hurts in our hearts with just anybody in our church. And I know the Lord used a couple of different Christian counselors that I was able to just go and just share my pain, and just having someone to listen unbiased and just a listening ear. I didn't need them to fix me because I knew that God was working and I was going to be okay. But sometimes as women, we need to talk.
Yeah.
And God provided on a couple of different occasions some wonderful Christian counselors, women, that just really met that need at that time in my life. And it was very, very beneficial.
There were lots of steps along the way that God was faithful to help us with. As simple as it sounds, one thing that was always huge for Maria and I, we didn't know what they were called back then, but was a life verse. And early in our experience, God gave us each a verse that we took to the bank and cashed time and time and time again. Mine was and is Romans 8:28. We know that God works all things together for good to those who love Him and are the called according to His purpose. I've taken that to the bank over and over and over. And I think the biggest thing was just learning to bring things into the light when it's appropriate and when it's safe and when God provides the opportunity and the people and the places to do that. And to just understand, I think Lee said it so well last night, we're who we are, we're real, and God's called us, and we're supposed to be where we are. And nobody's got it all together. And I have thought about what it must have been like to be around the Lord's table at the Last Supper when Jesus said, and these were His chosen, hand-picked guys. These were His guys that were going to lead His church. He chose them, called every one of them by name, and they had been under His mentorship for 3 years. These guys should have it together, and yet when He says, one of you at this table is not right, every single one of them said, is it me? Because nobody feels like they have it all together. If Jesus were to stand here this morning and say over this crowd, one of you has issues. One of you's got some problems that you don't want to talk to anybody about, not even me. And it's important that you do. nobody would look across the room and go, well, I know who he's talking about. It's about time he brought. I've been watching that. You'd go, he's talking about me. He's talking about me. And sometimes we're trying to escape the very issues and struggles that God won't necessarily get rid of, but if we'll bring it into the light and reveal it for what it truthfully is, and let God deal with it, and take advantage of the resources and the people that God supplies to deal with it, it's amazing. The very thing we're trying to get rid of, God will use it in His purpose. God can take things that make no sense to us and do something incredible with it. And I think that's maybe the biggest thing we've learned over the years and are still learning, is that we can bring these things to God and be open and transparent. And the things that we think maybe would disqualify us, God will even use to glorify Himself and make you effective. And everybody can relate to that.
So, and one of the things that you had spoke last night is that you think it's important that you had to be willing to just go get help. That people need to just do that. And we're a network here. This is family, and I think we need to view ourselves more and more that way, and really look out for each other and love on each other. We have opportunity. The reason we come together like this is so that we can build relationship and have places outside of our congregation to just, process and encourage one another and pray for each other. And so this is a real blessing that we're a part of something like this. There's a lot of friends that I have in ministry that aren't in a network like this.
Yeah,
they're just out there on their own, independent, and they don't have what we have, and I hope that we take advantage of it. And I think it'd be a great thing, and I think that that's one of the things that you would encourage as well.
Well, I think for me, I still to this day, and we've been in ministry almost 30 years, I am still in awe that God chose me and that He can use me. And I would like to say that one thing that has helped me over the years, and Bill, you're going to love this, is I have been a sponge. I have taken the opportunity, taken advantage of every ladies' retreat, every conference, every missionette function, every district council, every summit. I have been a sponge, quiet. I'm the quiet one, as you can tell. But I have taken all that. I've taken notes. I've taken notes, and I know that you, so many of you, have poured into my life, and you don't even know it. And that has just helped develop me. It's helped me with my feeling of inadequacy. It's given me confidence. It's built me up in the faith as I've gone to so many of these. The privilege of being able to go to all these incredible functions. It blows me away. I feel so privileged and honored and thankful that I'm in the Assemblies of God. I could have been saved in, another church, but I love the Assemblies of God.
Could have been a Mormon.
I know, that's... So that has been something that has really helped me along the way, is I have gleaned so much and taken advantage of every opportunity that's come our way.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good word for all of us.
And one more thing, too, I just want to say. We were saved, and we were in this church, Trinity Temple, for a very short time. For me, it was maybe not even a year and a half. I worked on Sundays. I worked in a hospital. So basically, my entire Christian walk, he has been my pastor. And I just can't tell you what I have learned from sitting under his ministry and his example. And I'm who I am partly because of his walk, as he's demonstrated it in our home, in public, wherever. He's the real thing, and I am just so thankful that he's been my pastor for so long. And I think, ladies, one thing that is so important for us as pastors' wives is to make sure that our husbands know that. Yeah.
Well, you went right. You went through this process. You got back and got back in the pulpit. Pastored there a number of more years, and been in Pendleton a number of years. And it's just exciting to see the love and grace of God working in people. And the key is we've got to let Him. We have to check our own engines. And
That's right.
And I appreciate this as a word to us, as an encouragement to us. And I appreciate your transparency with us this morning. I know that putting yourself out there can be uncomfortable. But I'll tell you what, I want to thank you on behalf of all of us for just sharing your story with us and blessing us this morning and encouraging us. No matter what we face, God is there, and He's going to send people to help us.
Right.
People are key.
Thank you, Joe.
Are key. Well, let's express our appreciation to Jenny and these guys. God bless you guys.
Thank you for listening to the 2010 Network Intermission podcast. For more information on the Oregon Ministry Network and our events, please visit our website at oregonag.org.